Am I the villain for cutting my son off completely after his mother died? For 26 years, I was his dad. I wasn't his biological father, but I was the one who was there. I taught him to ride a bike, paid for his college, gave him everything a father could. But then he found his real dad, and I was just erased. For years, he barely spoke to me. Then his mother passed away, and suddenly, my phone started ringing. He wanted something, and my answer would change our family forever. The story starts years ago. I was friends with his mom, Tammy, long before we were ever a couple. She got pregnant, and the guy who did it just vanished. Poof. Gone. I was there, helping her put together a crib, going on late-night food runs. I was just being a friend. But one thing led to another, and this friendship quietly blossomed into something more. It wasn't some grand, sweeping romance. It was a partnership. We cared for each other deeply, and we decided to build a life together. We got married when her son, Mark, was 3. 2 years later, I formally adopted him. He wasn't my blood, but in every single way that mattered, he was my son. Tammy was the heart of our home. She took care of Mark, she took care of me, and she made our house a place of warmth and comfort. My role was simple. I worked, and I paid for everything. It was a good division of labor. It was a good life. I had to be honest, I never planned on having kids. It just wasn't on my radar. But I loved Mark. I truly did. And I was determined to give him everything I possibly could. I'm not just talking about material things, though he never wanted for anything. I'm talking about my time. My presence. I was at every soccer game I could get to, every parent-teacher conference. I was the one who held the back of his bike, running behind him down the sidewalk, yelling, "Keep pedaling," until he finally found his balance and soared away on his own. I taught him how to check his oil, how to be a good man. We took family vacations every summer. I made a promise to myself and to him that when he walked out of university, he would do it with a degree in his hand and zero debt to his name. And I kept that promise. He was a great kid. Respectful, kind, smart. He made us proud. But university, it changed him. Something shifted. He became distant, withdrawn. He'd call home, but he'd only ask to speak to his mom. If I picked up, the conversation was short, clipped. It felt like I was talking to a polite stranger, not my own son. It turns out, he had met a girl there. Her name was Sarah. She had been adopted, and she came with a lot of baggage about her own history. Baggage she decided to unpack all over my son's life. She planted a seed in his mind, this idea that he needed to find his roots. And so he did. He contacted his biological father, the man who had abandoned his mother without a second thought. And just like that, after a lifetime of being dad, I was being displaced. Tammy, God rest her soul, was a mother through and through. She supported Mark in everything, and I would never have expected anything less from her. But it hurt. It was a deep, sharp pain to be so casually cut out of his life. He had a new father now, a new history he was exploring, and I was just a footnote. A wallet. Then Tammy got sick. Mark would come to visit her, of course. We'd see each other in the hallways of the hospital or in the living room of our home, but we barely spoke. A nod, a hello. The silence between us was deafening. All of our history, all those years, just evaporated into this cold, awkward tension. When she finally passed away, I saw him at the funeral. He cried. I cried. But we didn't comfort each other. We were two strangers mourning the same woman. After that, the only time I heard from him was to settle her estate. Which, frankly, wasn't much. She had a very small life insurance policy, and she had left it all to Mark. Everything else, the house, the savings, the investments, was in my name. It was mine. Here's where the story takes a turn. His mother's personal bank account was nearly empty. And there was a reason for that. For years, ever since he graduated, Tammy had been secretly subsidizing Mark's life. Like clockwork, every month, I would deposit our budgeted household money into her account. And almost all of it was going straight to him. He had a job, he had a wife, but his mother was still paying his bills, and he was letting her. He never once thought to ask where that money was coming from. He just took it. Now, Tammy and I had a separate, much more substantial life insurance policy. We set it up years ago, back when Mark was little. The idea was simple. If anything happened to one of us, the other would have enough money to live comfortably and continue taking care of our son. I was the sole beneficiary. I had been paying the premiums on it for decades. With Tammy gone, the secret bank of Mom was officially closed. And it didn't take long for Mark to notice. My phone rang. It was him. For the first time in years, he was calling me to have a real conversation. But it wasn't to see how I was doing. It wasn't to talk about his mom. He was calling for help. He needed money. I said no. The silence on the other end of the line was heavy. I told him, calmly, that he had the money from his mother's life insurance policy. Everything else belonged to me. The house he grew up in. The car his mother drove, which was leased in my name. The savings I had worked my entire life to build. All of it was mine. He was furious. He exploded. He said that I obviously had never thought of him as a real son if I was willing to do this to him. If I was willing to just cut him off and leave him high and dry. I told him to ask his biological dad for help, since that's who he wanted in his life. The call ended. A few days later, his wife, Sarah, called me. She was spitting venom. She told me I was a cold, heartless man. She said if this was how I was going to be, then I would be cut out of their lives for good. That I would never, ever see my grandchildren. They don't have kids yet, but I guess that was the nuclear option. The ultimate threat. I took a deep breath. And I told her, I'm okay with that. And I am. I miss my wife more than words can say. But my life is okay. I have my dogs. I have my job. I see my sisters and their kids. I'm a granduncle, and I'm involved in their lives. My life is full. The chapter with Mark, it seems, has closed. He made his choice years ago. I've just finally made mine. This is a story about deep, painful rejection. On one hand, you have a father who stepped up, loved a boy as his own, and provided a wonderful life, only to be tossed aside for a biological stranger. His reaction feels like cold, hard justice, a direct consequence of his son's actions. But on the other hand, is a parent's job ever truly done? The son, influenced by his wife, was searching for an identity, and his actions, while hurtful, came from a place of confusion, not malice. The father's final decision feels less like parenting and more like revenge. Is a parent's love supposed to be unconditional, even in the face of such a profound betrayal? Or did this son forfeit his right to his father's support the moment he decided he wanted a different dad?